The Agenda is powered by DART, Delaware's transit service, moving forward.
Hello, Delaware. Back again for another episode of The Agenda. I appreciate, as always, for you tuning in. You have a choice, but you made the right one tonight by joining us right here on The Agenda. As I promised this season, some heavy hitters, and this is no exception here today. We're back again for 2 appearances this season so far. We're excited to have our Lieutenant Governor, the great Bethany Hall-Long, here today to talk to us with the Black U.S. Chamber of Commerce President, Mr. Ron Busby. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. Always a pleasure.
I am excited that you all are here today, but it's been a whirlwind day for both of you, which is no exception of people in your leadership positions. I'm sure this is just another Tuesday for you all, but for me, I'm a little impressed, right? So today you had the Economic Summit, and it was brought to you by the Department of Behavioral Health, and how the economy, what's going on in the Black culture, and this is all through you, ma'am, and your organization, bringing this to Delawareans.
That's great. No, the Lieutenant Governor's Office has been thrilled to have the Behavioral Health Consortium, which is a group of stakeholders from law enforcement to leaders to policymakers, but most importantly, community advocates who've lived issues of facing social determinants, mental health, substance use, a lot of chronic health and illness issues. And so what more important opportunity than to feature social determinants of health and how they really impact our communities and equity, and in particular our Black and brown communities, but in particular our Black community. And so we are just so thrilled to have the U.S. President and CEO of the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce, Inc., here with us today, who really delivered a very powerful message to Delawareans. Thank you, sir.
Yes, we're excited, Mr. Busby. Tell us a little bit about what the takeaways were from today's meeting.
Well, first off, it was my first time being in Delaware.
This is your first time?
Welcome to President Biden's home. Yeah. We appreciate that.
Thanks for taking the exit.
Not a problem. But I was really impressed with the excitement and the enthusiasm from the audience. During my speech, I give a lot of data, give a lot of statistics, but to feel the energy that was in the room was really almost, I think everybody kind of got involved. It was great to be able to have conversations about economics and how we can improve our conditions based upon that. I think in our communities historically it's been a civil rights kind of conversation, and we've had some successes there. We've had some successes with educational rights, housing, but really it's got to be about economics and how can we move our agenda through a good economic conversation and agenda. And so today, I think, really kind of set the precedent for what's coming in the future for Black businesses as well as the state of Delaware.
So how can government help empower Black business?
Oh, I think government has a great opportunity. The government spends $960 billion every year on products and services. But as a Black business community across the country, we receive less than 1.5% of that. So the government can do more in reference to being intentional, transparent, and accountable. And when we see that and we hear it and we understand the importance of the role that the government plays, it also improves our conditions, improves our health, it improves our living opportunities, and most importantly, it moves us as a community and a country forward.
So hearing that, Lieutenant Governor, I mean, what were some of your takeaways from today?
Well, as you know, Mr. Busby said, Ron, it was an empowering time because it laid out the template for what we're doing well in Delaware and what we need to continue to lean into and to do. And for us, it was a matter of not only making sure that there's intentionality, that a healthy community, meaning behavioral health, mental health, which was sponsored today by our Behavioral Health Consortium, because we had listening tours. We went up and down this state from Claymont to Sebbyville, and we had it right today. We were correct to pull this forum together, to bring in a national leader, to inspire, to uplift, our brightest, best entrepreneurs are in this Black community. And we need to make sure from a government perspective that we have the resources provided. And so whether it's from our congressional, federal level down to our state or local government, we have to lean in and address things such as employment, such as housing, such as clean air, clean homes, the things that matter called social determinants. People have to have opportunity and non-traditional. We had a great panel of our Secretary of Labor, leaders out in our community, our state auditor, who, by the way, went to school with Ron, program, Lydia York. And so it really was a great template. And so to the listening audience today, I really hope folks take advantage of the resources we have here in our small business office, as well as some resources I'm sure Ron's going to mention. I was blown away with some of his opportunities and, for example, Buy Black US, things that you shared today. You got people motivated. You got some amens in the audience.
Nothing wrong with amens, you know, I mean, they come in handy. But you mentioned social determinants and health. How does that correlate with economics?
Yeah, it's everything. Again, I chair the Board of Pardons, for example, in Delaware, and if an individual cannot function because they have suffered from mental health issues, substance use disorder, some type of trauma, gun violence, domestic violence, those mental and physical health issues, chronic illness, sometimes doesn't allow us to perform at our best or know how to open doors or how to get resources. And so it's a really important component. And while we were listening up and down the state with our Behavioral Health Consortium, with our incredible troops on the ground who go out and meet with community, they were like, Lieutenant Governor, you've got to continue to lean in with not only your Black leaders calls, but you have got to lean in to make sure that the dollars are put in place to make equity in our Black community a high priority, which it is a high priority. And thanks to folks as our national leader who visited today, we're going to get that done.
Hearing that, sir, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think first off, Delaware was one of the organizations, especially here in town, that was able to participate in the Community Navigator pilot program. Many times in Washington, D.C., programs are created that never reach our communities, that never reach the business owners that need the information the most. What we talked about this afternoon was the resurgence out of COVID. We lost 442,000 Black-owned businesses between the months of February and April of 2020. The good news is that 78% of those firms have reopened in some form or fashion. But it took intentionality, like what we're seeing here in Delaware, to make sure that they had the resources, the relationships, as well as the opportunities. And when you bring both state and governments, along with federal agencies, along with community leaders and community voices, you really have an opportunity to change the future for the communities that need the information and resources the most.
Right. So, I mean, I heard what you said about recidivism and how people don't take economics into an account when dealing with that, and from your work with the Board of Pardons, I just want to make sure, and I've said this before to other politicians on the show, I love how the fact that we get pumped up about things, and we had an awesome day and a great presentation from you, but what can we do immediately afterwards to keep this momentum going for the citizens of the state of Delaware?
And it's going to continue. And that's why we're here today. You know, it started, like I said, not only through the years of work, and we had our leaders of our Black Legislative Caucus were present. We had City Council. We have representatives from every level of government. Our federal delegation had sent staff. We have to make sure not only that we have the resources, but as he indicated, the navigation skills, the mentorship. I was fired up by a couple of the speakers today who really talked about, you know, making sure to take advantage not only of your mentoring, but the sustainability. And thanks to the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce, the Delaware Black Chamber of Commerce who was present, along with many other nonprofits, that we don't lose the momentum. And so we have to ensure that our small business section, under the leadership of our Deputy Secretary of State, Chris Knight, and his team, that we have the forums, that we have the outreach, that we make sure we come on the media, and that people know they can pick up the phone, they can visit a website, and they can apply to these programs that are free. They are free. So if you're sitting at home listening to the agenda, or a young entrepreneur, or an older experienced person changing your life career, take advantage. We really want to uplift, and I'm competitive, and I want Delaware to get ahead of that percentage on the number of funds and resources to our Black community and the resources they need to succeed. Beyond what I see occasionally from our Pardons Board and other locations, we have some of the brightest people in this first state, and I am convinced, in partnership with Chamber and others, that we can be a role model. And I want Delaware to be that role model.
Right. So does that align with, I guess you would consider them like non-traditional career pathways, right? For these young entrepreneurs. Well, you don't even have to be young, but you think about people that are getting started, but whomever there that are not taking that traditional pathway.
Yep. And I think, Ron, I would like for you to go right into that answer, if you don't mind, because he's being very modest. He took a very small venture company and turned it into a $15 million company. Yeah. He's got a resume out here. And so I don't know if you want to share. Did you write down all those
instructions that you could email to me after the show? I'd really appreciate that.
So, I could answer, but if you want to, I'll defer first to you, and what you don't do, maybe I'll add to.
First off, you mentioned young entrepreneurs, and I talk to a lot of young people. Many of them are in college, and when you're in college, there's no entrepreneurial training programs. You can't take an entrepreneur class. And so what the U.S. Black Chamber has done is we have some chambers of commerce on college campuses to prepare young people from a mindset of what it's going to take to be an entrepreneur. But secondly, and equally as important, I tell people, don't do it. You're 19, 20 years old, and you think you want to open up a business for yourself, you're going to end up messing up your credit, your parents' credit, your name, and make it more difficult for the next Black-owned business that's going to come and compete after you. I tell young people, find somebody that's doing something very similar to what you think you might want to do, and go volunteer for them. It will bring the new technology that you can bring to the table, which will now give that new business or that existing business the types of resources and information that they need to have a long-term sustainability. And secondly, you'll now either be able to earn yourself a job or possibly take over that company. If you look at Black Enterprise Top 100, every year they give out a list of the top Black-owned businesses across the country, and each year 10% of those disappear. Just don't know where they are. And the majority of them say the reason why they dropped off is because they didn't have a succession plan. The reason why I left corporate America to go home and take over a family-owned business is because my father didn't have a succession plan. I was doing quite well in corporate America, was a senior VP at Coca-Cola, but my father had a business that provided resources for us. I say he had 5 employees, my mother, my father, my 2 sisters, and me. The company was doing $150,000 in annualized revenue. I was probably making somewhere close to $150,000. People laughed at me when I left corporate America and moved back in, slept in the same bunk bed that I had when I was in the 3rd grade. But I had a vision of how I was going to get there. A gentleman out of Baltimore, Maryland, Reginald Lewis, I read his book.
I read it. Why should they have all the fun?
Why should white guys have all the fun? And what you'll notice is that he never started a company.
He bought them.
He bought a company.
Right.
Elon Musk never started a company. He bought a company. And so we've got to think more like that. We've got to do more mergers, more acquisitions, more joint ventures and consortiums, because as we've seen in today's market, the opportunities are large in scale. The $1 trillion of infrastructure bills that's coming down the pike, you can't build a freeway for $150,000. You've got to have the size, scale, and infrastructure. And so to have a partner from both the state government, federal government, and a chamber of commerce that is going to give you the resources and the opportunity to say, hey, what is my vision and how do I accomplish that? You're going to need partnerships. And I really believe that what we have here in the state of Delaware is going to propel people to get to those opportunities.
I'm excited about that.
Isn't that exciting? See, I told you you had a better story than Mom. But in
can't
Delaware,
agree more.
we had Secretary Hubbard today talking about apprenticeships programs. We had Ms. Troy there who was preaching to the audience about, standing up and not just surviving, but thriving and with your corporation or your small venture. But thank you for those resources. And you didn't tell the rest of the story. You got out of the bunk bed, $150,000. What happened? Tell the end of the story.
We ended up growing. We got involved in several of the state local government contracts. We became 8A certified, and we ended up being the largest Black employer in the United States. We had over 1,500 people. Ended up selling that firm, and again, I think people need to think about business as an acquisition opportunity. As much as I tell people we got to have generational wealth, you can create generational wealth by acquisition.
Through acquisition, absolutely you can. Yeah.
And we need to have more of those types of conversations and dialogue. And today really allowed people to kind of have some sidebar conversations about how did you do it? What should I be doing as a business owner? And I think when people can hear and see someone that has done it in their presence, it gives them the kind of confidence that, if he did it, I can do it as well.
I can do it too.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
ma'am.
Yeah, and Beacon was there, executive resources, a lot of resources available. And we'll have that publicly available through my website too. So we'll make sure that those listening in who weren't able to be there today will have those connections. And it's not going to just sit on a shelf. We're going to move forward and continue.
We're very confident that's going to happen in the state of Delaware. I think, sir, that you will find. And fortunately, but unfortunately, this was your first visit, right,
Won't be my
to the
last.
state of Delaware. But fortunately, you got to see that we have a congressional delegation, we have a governor, and we have a lieutenant governor that absolutely get it,
Yes.
right? So we're fortunate enough. You can't say that about every state.
Not at all.
No, you can't. And then you can say it, but can you mean it? You know what I mean? I think
exactly.
that's the big thing. And the fact that you're here, per her advice, to come on this show to talk to people who look like you and me, who have entrepreneurial dreams and want to do so much, I think it says a lot about the state that you are in. So we are confident that today built some very strong synergies through the Economic Development Conference, and that it will continue, and it just won't end today. So I'm excited that that's going to happen, and we can't thank you enough, sir, for being here. And we look forward to having you here again.
Well, I'm
Thank you.
looking
Well,
forward
thank
to
you
the
for having us today. We really appreciate it, and we hope the listening and viewing audience tunes in and continues to move forward. And thank you, sir, for your incredible leadership. It was precisely 4 years ago COVID happened. You stepped up and you led. And thank you for being in Delaware, and thank you for having us on the agenda.
Yes, as always, the agenda is here bringing you information just like this to ensure that you are staying on top of things and maintaining that your issues maintain on the agenda. So we're excited about that. As promised, this season is not like any other. We're bringing you heavy hitters as we did here today. Please take Mr. Busby's advice to heart. Think about what you're doing in regards to entrepreneurship. You can do it because it's people like him that have done it before. So reach out to the information that's provided. Reach out to the leadership here in the state. You understand how to do that. Please do it. See you next week right here on the agenda.